Welcome to Lorient on the west coast of France, a city that is famous for being at the heart of the offshore racing world. All the major teams are here: Gitana, Sedebo, Banque Populaire, Chiral and many more. But Lorient is also famous because of this man, the late great Eric Tabarly, famous for his range of Penduic boats. So it's his reputation that is such a big influence on this area. And it's always a buzzy, exciting place. It's the centre of the offshore racing world. And that doesn't matter whether you're sailing a big old Team Cat or a mini Transat boat. They're all here. But right now, Lorient is special as being the start of the Ocean Race Europe. The race consists of 3 legs. The first one, starting here in Lorient, then goes to Cascais in Portugal. Leg 2 then goes to Alicante in Spain, and the third leg takes the fleet to the finish in Genoa in Italy. Quite a challenge, but there's been an even bigger challenge for the event, a challenge that's been facing sporting events all over the world: COVID. And they've got a very impressive setup here to deal with it.
What we are aiming to do is, this first point, get a clear slate that know that everybody is going to be COVID free when they start the race, and hopefully when they get to the end in Genoa. So although people have come in with their previous PCRs, and they have come in, some of them with PCRs within the 24 hours, we needed to know that everybody at the start has got a clean slate. Therefore, yesterday, rapid antigen test to everybody and PCR to those who are going to be travelling out of France within 72 hours. PCR tests will be repeated for those travelling at later dates, so that we make sure that there will be no problem in crossing international frontiers.
So what about the teams that are taking part? Well, down here on the dock, where face masks are mandatory, we've got the Imoca 60 class, the first of the 2 groups. There's 5 boats competing in this particular class. If you followed the recent Vendée Globe, some of these boats are going to be very familiar to you. Like this one, Thomas Royant, linked out. She finished 6th. Another one is Nicolas Troussel's boat, Corum, although unfortunately he was dismasted quite early in the race. But she's back together now. Now here's a team that didn't do the last Vendée Globe, but the name is becoming extremely well known, 11th Hour Racing, Charlie Enright's team. There's going to be a lot of eyes focused on this team because they really are up and running and getting ready for the ocean race next year. And then we have one of the newest teams in the fleet, Offshore Team Germany here. What's interesting about this team is that this is the one boat of the 5 that doesn't have the big horizontal foils. She's got far more conventional dagger boards. But given the variety of wind conditions that we're going to see over the next few days, it might just be that in certain circumstances they have an advantage. Anyway, that's all to play out. But aside from the teams themselves, one of the other things that's going to be really interesting in this race is that these boats are going to be sailed fully crewed. That might not sound particularly unusual, but bear in mind, these boats are generally designed to be sailed single-handed, maybe double-handed at most. They're going to have a crew of 4 or 5 people on board. That's going to make them pretty crowded for a start. But the other thing that's interesting about it is that none of the teams really knows how that's going to go, because with the full crew, they're going to be able to do sail changes and manoeuvres in a fraction of the time that they would expect. And that may well just change the whole performance profile of these boats. It's going to be fascinating to watch. Now, the other fleet to be taking part is this fleet, the Volvo 65s. Now, they are very familiar boats, of course, because they did the 2 previous Volvo ocean races. They're the same boats, rebranded, apart from one, Axel Nobel, who's in the same colours that it was in the last race. So let's go and take a little closer look. Now there are 7 boats in this fleet, and one of them is this one, the Mirpori Foundation. It's skippered by Jon Richomme, who's won the Figaro Solo twice. So there's plenty of eyes going to be on this team. Then there's Axel Nobel. This is the one to be the most familiar. It was skippered back then by Chris Nicholson, and it still is. Now they've only just got the band back together just recently, but there's plenty of experience on this boat. Now this boat, Ambersail, is the Lithuanian entry, and you may think the name is familiar, and you'd be right to, because Ambersail 1 was a Volvo 60, Ambersail 2 is a Volvo 65. Now of the new teams, the Austrian Ocean Race project is indeed one of the freshest teams into this event, and that can also be said for its crew. It has a long list of crew of very young and talented sailors. It's going to be interesting to watch this one as well. Now, when it comes to racing, it's often said that it's hours on the water that counts. And for this new team, Viva Mexico, that might just be what puts them in very good stead indeed. Because just to get here, they've already done 7,000 miles in a whole range of conditions. That's going to be pretty useful. Now, Sailing Poland is another team that's also full of new sailing talent. But when you look down the list, there's one name that really sticks out, and that's a skipper, Bauer Becking. There's not many people in the world that know more about racing around the world than Bauer. So the 7th boat in the Volvo 65 fleet is this one, Team Childhood. It's also skippered by someone with an awful lot of experience, Simeon Tiempont. Plenty of experience offshore, but also someone who's won the America's Cup twice. So a fair bit of talent there then. So in this fleet we know an awful lot about the boats, and indeed those that have sailed these boats before know a lot about how to make them go quickly. But what interests me particularly about this fleet is how many young sailors are involved. It's fascinating to look down the list and see just how many there are. The youngest crew member here is actually 16 years old. That's pretty impressive. But there's another thing that stands out as well, and that is that the youth element is not mandated by the class. That's the teams deciding that they want to bring on board young new sailors and give them the opportunity to get a taste of what offshore racing is really all about. That's really exciting. Anyway, the competition itself, that's going to be pretty exciting as well. Make sure you follow it. There's going to be live tracking that you can find on the Ocean Race website. That's theoceanrace.com. And of course, there's going to be plenty of videos and other material going up on the YouTube channel and of course the website itself. So stay watching. It's going to be a good one.